In 1610, Galileo pointed his telescope at Saturn and saw something he could not explain. Two bulges, one on each side like ears. 2 years later, he looked again. The ears were gone. The planet was perfectly round. He thought he had lost his mind. He had not. He had witnessed something happening right now, in 2025, that you can verify yourself. Saturn's rings have vanished from view again. But here is what Galileo never knew. The rings are not ancient. They are young, extraordinarily young, and they are actively dying. What you are about to learn about their disappearance rewrites the entire story. Drop where you are watching from below. And stay. The twist here is one scientist only confirmed a few years ago. Start with the scale, because without it nothing else lands properly. Saturn's ring system spans approximately 282,000 kilometers in diameter, so wide it would not fit in the distance between Earth and the Moon. Yet those same rings measure just 10 meters thick in most places. 10 meters, the height of a 3-story building, stretched across a distance wider than the Moon's orbit. The particles inside are composed almost entirely of water ice, 99.8% ice, with most pieces smaller than 1 meter across. The combined mass of all of it is about 16 quadrillion tons, which sounds enormous until you realize it is less than half the mass of Saturn's small moon Mimas. This is the first thing that should unsettle you. The most famous feature in the solar system, the image every child recognizes the moment they see it, is made of something thinner than a skyscraper is tall. And it weighs less than a moon most people have never heard of. In March 2025, Saturn's rings went edge-on as seen from Earth, meaning they turned sideways and became essentially invisible. This happens every 13 to 15 years due to Saturn's axial tilt of 26.7 degrees. This is what fooled Galileo in 1612. It is not the rings vanishing permanently. It is a geometry trick. The rings are so impossibly thin that viewed from the side, they nearly disappear. After the March disappearance, the rings will start to open up again by November 2025. By 2032, they will be fully tilted for a magnificent view once more. So the optical illusion is temporary. Every headline about rings vanishing in 2025 is technically about that: an angle, a tilt, a trick of perspective. But buried underneath all of those headlines is the real story. The one that does not come back in 2032. The one that scientists only confirmed with certainty in the final weeks of a dying spacecraft. NASA's Cassini mission, which ended in September 2017 when the spacecraft was deliberately plunged into Saturn's atmosphere, spent its final orbits doing something no probe had done before, diving between the planet and its innermost rings to measure the gravity pulling on the spacecraft down to a fraction of a millimeter per second. Those measurements answered a question that had divided scientists for decades. And the answer shocked them. Subscribe now if this is new to you. What Cassini found in those final dives is the part the headlines always skip. Saturn formed 4.5 billion years ago. Scientists spent decades assuming the rings were just as ancient primordial leftovers from the birth of the solar system, a permanent crown the planet had always worn. Cassini proved that wrong. The findings indicate that Saturn's rings formed between 10 million and 100 million years ago. From our planet's perspective, that means Saturn's rings may have appeared during the age of the dinosaurs. Sit with that. Saturn is 4.5 billion years old. Its rings are at most 100 million years old. The planet existed for 4.4 billion years without them, more than 95% of its entire life, as just a plain gas giant with no crown at all. Scientists now believe the rings came from a lost moon. The researchers named it Chrysalis. Titan, Saturn's largest moon, was migrating outward from the planet and at some point pulled Chrysalis into an unstable orbit. Chrysalis drifted too close, and Saturn's gravity tore it apart. About 99% of it was swallowed by the planet. The remaining 1% became the rings. A moon the size of Iapetus, Saturn's third largest, shredded into the most beautiful structure in the solar system. Born from destruction 160 million years ago, while dinosaurs still walked the Earth. But destruction does not stop at birth. It continues, quietly, invisibly, every single day. Ring particles are continuously pulled from the rings into Saturn's atmosphere by the planet's magnetic field. As they fall, they vaporize, a steady drain of ice and water called ring rain. Every second, up to 40 tons of ice from the rings descend into Saturn. 40 tons. Every second. Not during a storm or a special event. Constantly, around the clock, the planet is consuming its own rings. NASA's James O'Donoghue put a number on it. The ring rain drains enough water to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool from Saturn's rings every half hour. That is the rate NASA called worst-case scenario. Not an estimate to be cautious about, a confirmed rate from direct measurement. And when Cassini added what it detected falling into Saturn's equator on top of that figure, the conclusion tightened dramatically. The rings scientists once thought were permanent have less than 100 million years to live. But the story gets darker than even that number suggests. Here is what the worst-case number actually means when you break it down layer by layer. The rings are organized into bands labeled D through E, working outward from the planet. The innermost rings disappear first as they rain onto the planet, very slowly followed by the outer rings. It is not simultaneous collapse. It is a slow unraveling from the inside out, the planet eating its own rings one band at a time, beginning with the closest. In dense regions of the rings, particles collide with each other every few hours. These collisions accelerate ring rain by knocking particles loose, feeding them into the magnetic field that pulls them downward into the atmosphere. The rings are eroding themselves through their own internal friction. Cassini's measurements show that we are seeing Saturn's rings in the middle of their relatively short lifespan. They began roughly 100 million years ago and might last 100 million years longer, which means the window for any civilization to exist and be able to look up and see Saturn with rings is extraordinarily narrow against the age of the universe. Humanity developed telescopes 400 years ago. Galileo was the first person to observe Saturn through a telescope in the early 1610s. His instrument could not resolve what the rings were. It took until 1655 for Christian Huygens to correctly identify them as a ring detached from the planet. The researchers who discovered chrysalis noted something quietly extraordinary. The rings and Saturn's unusual axial tilt are connected. Losing the moon destabilized Saturn gravitationally, causing the planet to tilt. The rings and the tilt, two of Saturn's most defining characteristics, both came from the same catastrophe 160 million years ago. The moon that died gave Saturn the lean that makes its rings visible from Earth at their most dramatic angle. Even the geometry of how we see them is a gift from a destroyed world. Scientists note that the rings will not likely grow back in the same form. But a new ring system could form in the distant future if another moon, comet, or icy body is torn apart by Saturn's gravity. The cycle does not end. It resets. Saturn destroyed chrysalis and wore its remains as the most recognized feature in the solar system. In 100 million years, those remains will have fallen back into the planet, and the sky around Saturn will be bare again, until something else wanders too close. What Cassini confirmed in its final weeks was not just a rate of loss. It was proof that the solar system is alive, not frozen in the configuration we inherited, not permanent in any feature we treat as fixed. The rings humanity has stared at for 400 years are a brief middle chapter of a story that began with a collision and ends with rain. We arrived at exactly the right moment to witness them. That is either the greatest cosmic coincidence in the history of observation, or it is simply what it means to exist inside a universe that never stops moving. Saturn has a moon with geysers erupting from its south pole right now, shooting water ice into space, and NASA believes a liquid ocean sits beneath its frozen surface. Watch that video next. It is the reason scientists consider it one of the most likely places for life in this entire solar system.